We're here in the heat of fall in the middle of Tennessee to talk about what I wish every camera company, including Canon, would start implementing in their cameras that Sony is doing correctly with the new Sony a7R5. V5? I don't know. The first thing that I think every camera should have, especially hybrids, nature, is the flippy screen in the a7R5. But this is no normal flippy screen. This is a flippy floppy screen. It comes out and around, just like the S1H, which I reviewed a long time ago. But this time, it's much smaller and much better.
That's what she said. No.
The videos that I've seen from Gerald and from other people show how solid this thing is, and I've actually seen some people who were at the New York Sony event holding the screen only and dangling it around, and it's like, see, it's really sturdy. Of course, you would never do this unless it was a review camera, but hey, that's what review cameras are for testing. I want to see this on every camera. Panasonic has it with the GH6 and the S1H, and now Sony's doing it even better with the a7R5. Put that on every Sony camera, and Canon, please take note. That'd be nice. The next feature that I'd love to see on all other cameras that Sony has truly advanced forward is AI autofocus and also AI white balance, which I haven't seen anybody actually talk about. The truth is, autofocus has been kind of dumb for a while. Dual pixel autofocus with the original Canon 70D was actually pretty amazing at the time. It was using the data straight off of the sensor to determine where the autofocus was. That's all fine and dandy, but what if something obstructs that thing? Well, that's where AI autofocus comes in. What Sony has essentially done is shoved a robot inside of their body. It's a robot body. Neat. And what that robot can do is basically determine what is an actual human subject. It can detect the whole skeletal structure of a human, which means if you're not facing the camera and you're turning away from it, or your face is obstructed with a helmet or something like that, it's actually able to lock on and say, this is a human. The same is true for animals of all types: dogs, cats, cows, heebie-jeemoos, stuff like that. It can also track non-living beings like planes, trains, and automobiles. Not only that, but you can actually register people's faces and say, hey, this is Connor, and I want you to focus on Connor. So now you can send all of your information up to the Sony cloud, and they have a bunch of images of your face. I don't know if that's true, by the way. I think it might just be on device. Also, artificial intelligence white balance. We've actually seen this on mobile phones for the last couple of years. iPhones are able to determine that this is a human subject and this is a landscape. They're able to determine what type of skin tone that you are and adjust the white balance accordingly to make it the most pleasing image. All that being said, I think it's really important for other camera companies to look at what Sony is doing with this amazing AI technology and start implementing it into cameras. Come on, AI, robots, put it in there. Now, those first two features were related to the brand new a7R5. The next three features are in the R5, but also in other Sony cameras. And the next feature is Catalyst Browse. What they're doing basically with their post-production software, Catalyst Browse, is allowing you to adjust things that typically is done in camera in post. So first off, stabilization. A lot of these cameras now have digital stabilization in addition to IBIS, which stands for in-body image stabilization, which is actually a mechanical moving of the sensor. Digital stabilization, when best used, is used in combination with gyro data. If you're not familiar with what a gyro is, it's usually just a little ball with little sensors on it, and it's able to determine, using gravity of all things, where the thing is in position with the Earth. And usually this is all done internally. It's taking that data and applying a warping of the image to fix any handheld motion. Well, now with Catalyst Browse, you can essentially do this in post-production and dial it in however you want, and it works beautifully. I've seen some incredible results with it, in fact, especially when you turn off IBIS, ironically, you get even better stabilization with Catalyst Browse. And I would love to see this in other camera companies. I think Canon especially could do this very easily. They already have all that data, same as Sony. They all have this gyro data. Why don't other companies do this? Maybe they don't have the billions of dollars in TV and very popular superhero character IP.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
I would love to see software to go with cameras and to have this kind of infused technology much better. Catalyst Browse. Let's call it Cranon Browse. That's a winner right there. Dang it. Next point is body stuff. Really good bodies. The Sony cameras, that is. I love some of the things that Sony has done with their overall design and bodies, but there's also a couple things that are kind of downsides. Let me start with the positive. First off, full-sized HDMI ports on all their flagship cameras. In my opinion, this is a no-brainer. A lot of people who use these cameras are video shooters, and even if you're not a full-time video shooter, micro and mini HDMI ports are teeny tiny and they break off and they're just a headache to deal with. Secondly, while we're on the topic of bodies, let me talk about card slots. Sony does have these great card slots now where you can actually use CFast cards and SD cards in the same port. Come on, other companies, be better, okay? Now, Sony may have the best body features overall, but there are a few drawbacks. First off, the shape of the body is really where the downside is. Obviously, the meat on the body is the most important, and they've got the meat down pat, and it's, you know, the personality of the body that means the most. But in terms of their shape, I feel like it's just not comfortable. The grip is too small. It's too boxy, and it kind of looks like they just took a grip from like 3 years ago and just slapped it on a square box. If they're going for this square, almost kind of retro vibe, then they should just lean all the way into it and make some actual retro, good-looking cameras. I wish Sony would do that. Although Sony doesn't have the heritage that Fuji and Nikon have, they didn't actually make cameras from the 50s, but they could at least fake it, you know? That's what they do for Spider-Man. They keep making fake Spider-Mans when the true only Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire.
He will go down as one of our best Spider-Men.
Thanks. I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
And lastly, feedback. Sony listens to the daggum feedback that users give to their cameras. It's one thing to have a ton of money like Sony and make a bunch of cool stuff and outperform all the other camera companies, but I promise you, Sony listens better than almost any other company. I know this firsthand because I've worked with them, we've gone to events, I've talked to their engineers, I've talked to friends that have gone to these events, and Sony literally flies out some of their head engineers out to these events with a clipboard, and they ask creators, what are some features that you like about our cameras? What are some features that we could add or things that we could change? They actually write these things down and listen and implement them in their cameras. This is why Blackmagic is honestly taking over with DaVinci Resolve. All that being said, I would love to see other camera companies, not just Canon, but all camera companies, start to be a little bit more humble and ask their users for feedback. What do you like about our camera? More importantly, what do you not like about our cameras? I think they could learn a lot from Sony, and I truly believe the reason Sony is crushing it right now is because they listen. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Canon sells a camera with a C on it, which stands for cinema, and it's got a micro HDMI port. Why Canon? Why the R5C?